Good, welcome to our panel on the ASU Global Freshman Academy. We're here at the 1-year anniversary of GFA, and our panelists are, well, I'll introduce the panelists as we go down the line here. But we're glad you could all be here. We'd like to make this an interactive session, so I'm going to tee up a few questions for the panel, and at some midway point through this session, we'll just open it up for questions from the audience. My name is Richard DeMillo. I direct the Center for 21st Century Universities at Georgia Tech. And to my immediate left is Adrian Sannier from Arizona State University. And I'm just going to throw the first question to Adrian. So we're at the 1-year anniversary. Why don't you tell us what the GFA is and what the status is at the 1-year point?
Well, great. So it's great to be back at ASU GSV, even if we are here in California instead of our native Arizona. May our tribe increase. So Global Freshman Academy is a unique partnership between edX and ASU that Anant and President Crow conceived of and announced at last year's GSV. The idea is to take the typical freshman year and make that available at scale on the internet for free, so that students who want to understand what it is to go to an American university and succeed can get a sense for that. And then, in maybe the most unique feature, if a student takes the courses in an ID-verified way, and they're able to succeed in the course, passing the ID-verified assessments, then they're in a position to, after they succeed, pay for credit and begin to build their transcript that shows that they are college ready in a United States system. And so in the first year here, we've seen 120,000 or so students coming in the top end. I think we may be closer to 150 based on the courses that opened this weekend. Lots of students are completing these courses. Our completion percentages are better than the typical MOOC, and some students have begun to pay us for credit. So it's been a very interesting first year. I'd say we're halfway in the process of building out the course calendar, and the most recent course that we launched this Sunday was a course that's very close to my heart that I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about, that I have to thank my two colleagues, Anant and Stephen Laster, for being able to make possible. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about some of that. Now, Anant, you've got your own perspective on Global Freshman Academy's progress. You know, what's it look like from the edX side?
From the edX side, I think what's exciting for us is that for us, we're about two things. At edX, one is that we want to increase access to education for everybody. And second is we really want to innovate in education and really create very transformative approaches for education for both universities and online approaches. And so for us, our perspective in Global Freshman Academy is that it's a phenomenal 1-2 punch. The courses are free. These are true MOOCs. They're massive, they're open, they're online, they're courses, so they're MOOCs. And that enables anybody anywhere to take just great free courses from, for example, you can learn anthropology from the professor at ASU that discovered Lucy. I mean, how cool is that? And so, so students all over the world can see what great teaching is like and take these courses. Did I say they were for free? For free. And so, and that's the access. But at the same time, it is revolutionizing the way that universities and online platforms can work together. A typical university is completely bundled. It's an ivory tower. You come in at one end, and if you're lucky, you come out the other end. That's it. It's a stovepipe. But now with Global Freshman Academy, the first time that we're unbundling education, where just imagine you're completing the first year online on edX, called Global Freshman Academy. And then you pay if you pass. And once you earn the credit, you can then complete your second, third, fourth year of education at ASU. Or for that matter, any other university around the world that will transfer ASU credit. So this is a whole new concept of education, which really takes the best of MOOCs, massive and open, and then finds a very synergistic relationship with a traditional university, although ASU is in no way traditional. But I think the beauty of this model is that it brings together a very innovative approach combined with what is a traditional university approach and creates a harmony between the two.
Stephen, your name was taken in vain here. Stephen Lasser from McGraw-Hill Education. You're the third leg of this stool.
Sure.
And maybe you can tell us how it looks from an MHE standpoint.
Absolutely. From McGraw-Hill standpoint, the ability to help reimagine higher education with folks and innovators such as ASU and edX has just been a phenomenal opportunity. If you heard David Levin speak earlier at the conference, or if you've heard anything about McGraw-Hill, the past 3 years since we stood up as an independent company have really been 3 years about proving to the world that we are just laser focused on outcomes. And so when Adrian approached me and said, you know, there's a real crisis in higher education around math, and I think we all agree that there is. The failure rates are far too high. And we want to try this innovative model with Anant and edX, and we want McGraw-Hill to play a role in reimagining how we de-risk student investment and how we better support students in their own time and at their own pace. It was an immediate yes. So we're fortunate that we've spent many, many years investing in a personalized and adaptive math platform called ALEX. And through research and through really rigorous product development, we truly know that it helps learners stay on that confident math road. It avoids frustration and it avoids boredom, and it puts the power back into their hands to plot their path forward. And thanks to Anant's vision of building a really open and easy integratable platform, and Adrian's vision of a curriculum that's really engaging, we're able to fit in a meaningful way into that course. And so ALEX becomes a place where I can do my work and where I can practice. Think of it as my safe area. And what we've seen even in just this first weekend, it can be addicting to that passionate learner. And so to help play a role in really not just providing access, which is super important, but helping to provide successful access has been tremendous and continues to be fun.
So this didn't just spring into life, full-blown adult program. You had to innovate in order to get there. I wonder if you guys can give us some sense of what kinds of innovations it took to make this program a reality.
So let me start. I think it comes down to meetings, 2 meetings. You know, all the things that we do, right? We talk about them like they're natural processes. They have long explanations, but in the end, it comes down to some individuals that are capable, that get together and make decisions. And so one of those meetings was between Anant and President Crow, where 2 organizations decide that there's a level of risk they're prepared to take to create a new innovation. And it is absolutely a leap and the net will appear moment. It's not clear whether it will work. It's not certain that it's doable. But when executives make those choices, it lays a path that other people can follow. And then the second meeting took place in Stephen's offices in Boston. And we brought together the team from edX, led by, at that time, Beth Porter. And we brought the team from Arizona State, including our own Nate Wilkin, who many of you will know as a certifiable genius. And then the folks from ALEX. And in an afternoon, we mapped out the architecture for how this course would work. And then these 3 teams set to working, and in 6 months came back with what was designed. And what I would say about that course is, it is an MVP approach. When you go up there, there'll be things you'll think, oh, I would do this differently. This could be improved. That could be improved. Don't judge us by what it looks like today. It's perfectly, it works today. But judge us by what it'll be in a year. Because over that year, we're determined to take this internet scalable infrastructure and teach absolutely as many people as we can mathematics. Some for credit, some not for credit. And it all comes out of those 2 meetings. Now, Anant, you were there. Am I misrepresenting?
No, you're right. But I think I'll take a slightly different angle, which is an operational angle, which is, it looks very simple. Here are the GFA courses, some with adaptive learning and some with a variety of other mechanisms. And to a learner, they might say, oh yeah, this was just a natural thing. It wasn't a big deal to pull together. But after this experience, what I'd like to say is that when we moved with GFA to the first MOOCs being offered for credit, I like to call that moment the MOOC 2.0 moment. Moving into credit for MOOCs, I like to think of that as crossing the sonic barrier for learning. We didn't hear the sonic boom, but we heard everything else. And so I'll give you some examples. Major changes had to happen both in quality and accountability. In the quality space, we already heard of bringing in adaptive learning. A number of other mechanisms for quality, such as the concept of integrating hand grading with peer grading. The concept of cohorts, where the people that had indicated an interest in getting credit put into a special cohort where they get special services like tutoring, for example. The concept of teams where people can work together in groups. So the list of new mechanisms and approaches to up the quality and the bar of the learning experience is a long list. On the accountability front, again, the credit is a sonic barrier of education. A lot of things happen in accountability as well, which is, in the past, all we were doing was giving a certificate. This thing is a certificate. Who cares? Give it out, right? Now, you want a couple of those? Here, take a couple. But now we're talking about credit. And credit is the gold coin of the academic realm. Okay, now you're handing out gold. And so credit is very important. And so we had to do a number of things, and both at ASU and McGraw-Hill and edX, once credit came into being. I'll give you a few examples. The biggest one, of course, is virtual proctoring. And I see our partner, Software Secure, sitting right here. We had to be able to make sure the students could take an exam where we knew it was their own work. And virtual proctoring was the first thing we thought about. Now, the number of companies doing it, we've been delighted with our partnership with Software Secure, who have an asynchronous approach that can scale very quickly to thousands of learners. And so now thousands of learners have gone through the virtual proctoring approach on edX and are eligible for credit. Other things, timed exams. In MOOCs, I mean, you take these things for granted on a campus, but in MOOCs, there's no concept of timed exams. We now have timed exams in MOOCs. We now have the concept of randomized problem banks in MOOCs. We have the concept of various other approaches, such as an exam that you give learners that can show up at a given time, and then after some time you can turn it down. So many, many features that had to come in for us to be able to prove that MOOCs can be accountable. So operationally, we all had to grow up tremendously, and which is why I call this moment the MOOC 2.0 moment, as we had to move into credit. Steven.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, and I think Anant is spot on. The big piece of this, though, was Adrian's vision. So lots of services, lots of technology to integrate, lots of moving parts, lots of operational processes to bring it to life. But fundamentally, this was about academic design. And so if you think about just being in this conference today and all the power and options that we talk about today, the technology is super important. The academic design is king. So in that conference room with the edX team, with the ASU team, with the McGraw-Hill team, that's where it all started. And what we envisioned was engaging access and successful outcomes. And then to Anant's point, take that down and operationalize it and look at all the moving parts that Anant just inventoried for us that had to come into place to both support the social and academic design to make this experience authentic. I think that's the really big power of this moment of MOOC 2.0. We've really taken it to just an effective level of engagement for those learners.
So I'd like to pick up on that,
Sure.
if I could. The pedagogical decisions that underlie the recently released college algebra course, that pedagogical experience is 4 years worth of Arizona State's 60 plus freshman math instructors who, under the direction of the provost and the president, changed the ASU approach to freshman math to focus on a personalized approach instead of an en masse approach, driven by the use of technology supported by interpersonal human contact. And so that was sort of foundational for us. We began that across the 8,000 students who take freshman mathematics at Arizona State. We refined that process year over year, working with a variety of different partners and technologies, and learning many things. Oh, how effective are these tools? How well do they work? And some work better than others, as we found. But what we did see is that you could absolutely get a much more detailed understanding of not only what a person knows and doesn't know, but also what do they do when they struggle? Do they look for help or do they pull back? When you send them information, do they use it or are they paralyzed by it? And we could develop different kinds of intervention strategies to unlock those students that fit in a certain intersection of characteristics. And so that process we knew would work at the scale of 10,000. And we knew that we could deliver it online and that it wouldn't be diminished in any way by that online delivery. In fact, if anything, it looked like online delivery would enhance it, because it meant that help would be available more often and you wouldn't have to kind of go down to the tutoring center and stand in line. So if you can do it for 10,000, well, how many can you do it for? 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion. Oh, that's it, we're done. There are now 5 orders of magnitude which need to be crossed. Now, ASU in 1875 or so began teaching college algebra, and they have in an unbroken line for 131 years taught students college algebra at an escalating scale, crossing orders of magnitude, tens of students, hundreds of students, thousands of students, tens of thousands of students. And so the opportunity now to build an asset that's usable globally, to begin to engage the kinds of numbers that will make the differences we all aspire to, that's what we hope for in this course. And if it was just me, you guys should all get up and walk out of the room. But we all know who we're really talking about here. We're talking about Michael Crow, the author of The New American University. And if he can't do it, nobody can. And I assure you that if our team is unable to cross this boundary, the next one he puts in, or the one after that, or the one after that, we just won't stop till we do it. Go Devils.
So I'm hearing things that are a potential problem for an institution that wants to get into this business, and the things that generally push people away is combining your passion for experimentation with what Anant was talking about, granting actual credit that a university is willing to stand behind. Talk about that potential clash for us. How do you manage that?
Well, so let me start, and I'm sure that you guys have opinions. The thing that underlies President Crow's vision for the New American University can be summed up in 3 words: excellence, access, impact. And when Michael first started ASU on the mission of excellence and access at the same time, this trade-off that you describe became central to us. Because we were told, oh, you have a choice. There's an iron triangle, and if you increase access, then you will decrease excellence. If you try to increase excellence, you will decrease access. And what Michael said is, no, I reject that. In our charter, we say, in our charter, we say something that means something to everybody who's on the mission. We say that we will be judged not by who we exclude, but by who we successfully include. We will be judged by the success of our students. And so we're committed to raising excellence and access. It's not new for Freshman Academy. This underlies everything we've tried to do at ASU, and I think our track record shows that we know how to do it. And so here, we're trying the ultimate access play. Anyone with an internet connection can come and try to learn mathematics from us now. And we will try to support them as much as we possibly can and learn and investigate, student by student in a sense. And we are absolutely trying to build an asset that's not just useful to us, but is useful to high schools, where a high school teacher says, well, I don't even have a personalized adaptive tutor. Well, if your student can sign up with us, they have one now, so knock yourself out. And in the process, we will build an asset that learns, that adapts, that evolves. And so we have the opportunity to keep this academy open. I've told the students who are providing the support that what they are doing is founding a math course that we should be able to run for decades, and that they are the founders. And if you could meet some of these kids, you would believe, as I do, that we will succeed, because they believe that they can teach the world math.
if I might add to, to your question as to how are we able to innovate and experiment, yet at the same time, there's the specter of, not the specter, but the appeal and the allure of credit. And there's a real challenge between high stakes credit and experimentation.
That's right.
And the good news here is that fortunately, the gods aligned for us. It turns out that the beauty of the Global Freshman Academy, or a follow-on program that we launched with MIT as a pioneer in that, the MicroMasters program, the beauty about each of these programs is that these are MOOCs by their very nature. These are massive and open. What that means is that people can take these courses for free. The entire learning experience, not just the videos, but the videos, the assessments, the exams, all of that experience can be freely taken for free. And at the end of the day, you get your learning experience. Once you pass, then you can parlay your certificate for credit, and so you pay if you pass. So the beauty of that is it's a risk mitigation technique for students, which is they can learn completely for free. There's no risk. You just suddenly break the leg or something or a hand and they can't study. They say, okay, whatever, it's free anyway. And they go on and come back later. And then once they pass, they go and get the credit and pay for the credit. So you pay after you pass. The beauty of that is it's great for us as experimenters as well, which is when students are taking the course for free, we can experiment a little bit because they haven't paid up yet. It's once they pass that they pay, and so if we mess up a little bit, or as we experiment and do things and things don't quite work out the way we planned them to be, it's okay, it's free anyway. So I think the beauty of pay if you pass is risk mitigation for both the students, but also dramatically a risk mitigation approach for edX or our content partners like ASU and McGraw-Hill as well. So I think that aspect works out really nicely.
So I would add, I think, with modesty, Anant and Adrian missed on one key ingredient. So I think those are the conditions for why this can be a low-risk experiment. But I think your question was closer to, like, how do you really make this happen with this tension sitting there? And I think it's about...
I mean, you're putting your brand on the line.
We're putting our brand on the line. ASU is putting its brand on the line. edX is taking a big risk in 2.0 and in a pivot. And I think it really comes down to a focus on leadership quality and a focus on students. So the real way you mitigate the risk is by designing a rigorous experience. And everybody that I've interacted with from edX and from ASU at every level, and I believe the McGraw-Hill team, that's been the #1 driver in this experiment. And so when really experienced people such as Anant and Adrian and folks at McGraw-Hill come together and keep that student in the center of everything we're doing, yes, there's risk, but it's manageable risk. And so it's a rational innovation. And I honestly think that's the key ingredient here that really took this thing from, especially the math course, from really idea to live in a very short period of time. And it's something that I think too often as we talk about where is ed tech going and how are we transforming, that holding that student in the center oftentimes isn't enough of the conversation. In this case it was, and it's turning out well.
And thank you for reminding us. I think I would be completely remiss if I did not acknowledge the absolute massive amount of effort that is being put by all our teams, the ASU team, the edX team, and the McGraw team. I remember with and partner teams and software secure and so on. I remember when the first virtual proctored exams came out. We had not done virtual proctoring in MOOCs before, and so when that came out, you can't have students dropping through the cracks, and so a lot of people would hand-hold a lot of the initial experiences, making sure that everybody had a good experience. And so what we don't see are all the quiet workers who work 7/24 to make sure that the thousands of people have a good experience, and that's the hard part. With MOOCs, there's no such thing as onesies and twosies. You count onesies and twosies in the thousands and tens of thousands.
That's right.
And you have to make sure that all the experiences are good experiences. And there, it's overwhelming, massive human effort is key to making those experiments
Can we talk
successful.
about that a little more? I think one of the critical narratives of MOOCs is that it's somehow an attempt by universities and companies to undermine the quality of the undergraduate experience, to do it in a quick way, a cheap way. Can you talk a little bit in more detail about the effort that goes into offering these courses?
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on that. We've talked a lot, all of us, for a decade or longer. Why isn't technology making bigger difference in education? Look at all the different things that can be done. Look at all the, like walk down the hallway, it's a world of wonders out there. And then go to your local school and, wow, this is very familiar to me. I didn't go to school for a long time, but it's very similar to the way it was. We're still not quite breaking through. Well, what's the reason? Well, my contention is it's a question of scale. When we deploy technologies at the level of individual professors, and individual professors pick up their individual sets of tools and try their best to craft an online experience in their LMS, maybe putting in a little bit of this technology and a little bit. And then we're going to compare that to Call of Duty and wonder why students spend more time in Call of Duty than they do in their online course. We have deployed at the wrong level of scale. What's exciting about this math course that we've assembled, as an illustration of the other courses in the academy, there are, I don't know, give me a number, an order of magnitude. How many man years in ALEX?
Oh, millions.
I mean, it's just, we're talking about a software program that has a life of almost 15 years, correct, right? Yep. Started from an NSF research grant, just an enormous amount of investment. On the edX side, in terms of developing that platform. And then, as we assembled this course, at Ed Plus, we had 25 people on this team. Now, you might think, like, boy, those guys are crazy. They're not making nickel one yet. What are they doing? What we're doing is creating this course at the next level of scale. And if we can demonstrate that that course can operate at that level of scale, which in mathematics is cut and dried. We could argue about, and we're still investigating, what it is to determine whether a student has met the critical thinking goals of a course like Don Johansson's course around SU. But in math, look, we know what a math test is, and we know how to score one, and you can tell the difference between the people who pass and fail. And when we start turning out 10,000 graduates a month, the world is in a different place than it was before. And we're motivated here by people like Sal Khan, who have shown that when you create a centralized resource that's accessible from the internet, and you make it available to people for free, and it works, you can get to the millions of people that you can help. And the difference for us is we're now providing, maybe for one of the first times, a complete experience. There's a way to start, there's a way to enroll, there's a way to practice, there's a way to learn, then there's a way to be examined, and then there's a way to get credit. And that's the whole experience now available at internet scale. And so what I'll say is this: if we don't do it, gentlemen, it's our fault, because someone will come after us and do it. This is not an idea that won't happen, right? Like this genie's out of the bottle. Math will be taught this way, and not because it's worse or cheaper, but because it will be better, faster, more effective. That's why it will work. And it will work. These technologies, like, we know it will work at ASU. We've seen it. We've evaluated it against 10,000 people. We're sure that this is going to work.
I think there's always a real challenge with, like you said, how do you scale human effort? Where a lot of these very high quality courses, whether it's for accountability or for just quality and rigor of courses, how do you reconcile both upping the quality and the scale? And so, in case of wondering how the heck do you do that, particularly with grading, there are a couple of simple ideas. So it's actually not magic. It's a lot of effort and some simple ideas. One idea is that take grading, for instance. So what we did was we created the concept of a cohort. You have a MOOC course which everybody takes, and that's free, and they get a full educational experience, including exams and tests and assessments and all of that stuff. But then for those that sign up for credit, we create a cohort. A cohort is a particular grouping of students that share a common experience. And what we're now able to do is that for those students, because they're signing up for credit and they're paying a small fee to be ID verified on the order of, I think it's $49, what we can do is that some of the more labor-intensive components where it's not zero marginal cost, where there's a marginal cost, those components get targeted within the cohort. So for example, there's an English composition class from ASU. So you can teach English composition online. So for the free students, there are assessments and grades, but it all uses peer grading. But the students who've signed up for a verified certificate signaling they want credit get put into a credit cohort. And within the credit cohort, we built in hand grading as part of the peer grading flow. And so a lot of the plumbing is happening automatically, but then the part where you actually grade it happens to be done by a human being. And so there, you fold in some of the human effort element, but you do it in a very, very focused, narrow, atomic manner, so that you're not putting in human effort everywhere, but you're focusing it where it's really needed. So that is one approach where you can do this. Now, in the past, that was true of adaptive learning and tutoring. But then technology continues to make advances, and the work that Stephen Laster and his team have done, are showing that even with some of these things that people thought could not be done by computer, they're showing that you can do that online as well.
And I think if you generalize both Anant's and Adrian's comments, there's some key changes happening here. So Anant beautifully just talked about different ways of operating smartly at scale. Really, really interesting approaches. And Adrian talked about investing enough to create a beautiful experience, but then the implication is you have to have it at scale to make it sustainable. Right. So what's implied in all of that, in the academy, in commercial firms such as McGraw-Hill that play a significant role, is we're all going to have to share. That's right. And we're all going to have to think deeply about what distinguishes us. So for example, at McGraw-Hill, we thought deeply about that in the K-12 space several years ago, and said that being in the summit of assessment business didn't distinguish us. And so we stopped. We stopped to invest in the learning moment and into adaptive and personalized, and to make that as good as we could. You're seeing edX, McGraw-Hill, ASU share. It's not natural that we would do this. You know, when I first got into online in 1999 for Babson College, I was a heretic, right? I mean, how am I going to take an MBA program and put it online? You can't teach leadership online, can you? And I was almost run off campus because my job was to launch the program. We shared. We shared with our faculty. We shared with other institutions. And I think what we're clearly seeing at this moment in time in higher ed is that innovators share, innovators get to scale, and those who find what they do really well and distinctively have a great impact. But if you want to do it all and just sort of be that walled garden and just be that ivory tower, as Anant said, good luck. It's not the future.
I see that the clock is moving rapidly here. I'd like to throw it open to our friends in the audience to ask questions and continue the discussion. We have maybe 10 minutes or so that we can do that. Are there any questions for the panelists? Yes.
Do you see, with this new initiative, any problems with kind of the general LMS parts of the edX platform overlapping with some traditional LMS components, and what things are not needed in the platform from the LMS side not being there, and how are you addressing that?
So, I mean, we had a great conversation, if I can jump in Boston, that during the design day. And as I said, the design was really a student-centric design. So what does the student need to have a friction-free experience? And we knew that the edX platform was at the core, and we knew that we wanted to use Alex, and there's actually technologies that ASU has delivered. And there was tremendous overlap. And it could have been a real dogfight. But we held the student at the center, and we then said, what does each of us do that's distinctive? And we all agreed then to shut off the overlap parts that weren't distinctive to our offering. And so it's that willingness to share and that willingness to have a student-centric design that took that tension out of the conversation from my point of view.
The other thing is, it's not like, many engagements in public-private partnership are bounded. Oh, we're going to make a program, and then we're going to deploy it at the school, and then we're going to go on, this partner's going to go on and do that elsewhere. And And so you're left with this piece of technology that you're deploying. And well, like, how's it going to get better? How does it continuously improve? When we go at this scale, like this course is just open now. And you can just come whenever.
In fact, everyone can start right
You
after
can,
this
like,
session.
in fact, half of you should be through chapter 1 by now, and I'm a little disappointed. And so the opportunity to just sort of continuously evolve now. We start with MVP, we start with the basic set of things that we've got to have, and then we start to measure. Now, there's a lot of aspects to this measurement. One thing we're doing is we're measuring every asset that we serve up. So you're working on a problem, and you find that you don't know how to do it. Well, when you push one button that's right next to your problem, up comes, well, there's an excellent McGraw-Hill video there. There's oftentimes a Sal Khan video there. There is a section from the OpenStax textbook there. And then there is, as we're building out the product, a set of frequently asked questions that form a kind of electronic recitation around this topic, as students are asking questions and our coaches are creating video assets that they send back. And so we can measure, well, who looks at what? Who likes what? Who was struggling with skill A, looked at video X, and then tomorrow is not? Maybe that's a pretty good video. And the more of those moments we add up, it's a very straightforward thing for us to evolve the content so that we can address the best possible assets for a student to be able to learn the topics, right? In terms of the user experience, we're already engaged, trying to understand, okay, based on what we've been able to accomplish, what do we know we need to do? What are students telling us? What is our own sense telling us about how we need to rework that? When you come back in 3 months, you'll see an experience that's even more streamlined than the one that we have now. And so this opportunity to sort of rapidly evolve your course based on the data that's coming back, again, is a property of scale. In a small course, who can afford to do these things? And for how long? But if you, I'm sorry to say this, if you work for Michael Crow, you get to try stuff like this. Because he says, well, look, somebody's got to do this. We're going to do it. And so we're going to stay with it till we get it done.
A lot of people have asked me about, what are the changes in the LMS? And I think I'll answer a question a bit differently, which is that for the longest time, people have thought of LMSs as learning management systems. How many times have we heard the word management in this discussion?
No times.
0.
It's the same
What
price as the
what
course.
words have you learned or heard about? Learner. He used the word experience 3 times in his last little piece here. So learner and experience, that's the big one. So what we're building here is not an LMS. We're building a LES, a learning experience system. Okay. Put the learner at the center, and the learning and they're experiencing learning. And so I would not look at it as what deltas do you have to an LMS. Really, the delta is throw the LMS out and build something from the ground up. That's what we've done. That's an LES. But because people know what an LMS is, sometimes these are mistakenly referred to as LMSs.
So how would that impact since it's not, is it part of OpenEdX now?
Yes, this is all that I've talked about. The McGraw-Hill component, the adaptive piece for the mathematics, is a plugin component, and that's McGraw-Hill's. But the OpenEdX platform with all the other stuff that I talked about, the timed exams, the randomized problem banks, there's some adaptivity in other parts of the platform. All of that stuff is the whole mobile experience, the authoring platform, the analytics platform are all 100% open source. You can go to openedx.org and just download it for free, and there's 300 sites around the world using it today.
I'm from Durub, by the way.
Oh, you're from Durub. Excellent. So Durub is a Saudi platform using OpenEdX.
Cool.
That's on another hand. Yes. I'm sorry, the light is blinding me over here. So if you have questions, you're going to have to shout them out, I guess.
Hi, my name's Catherine Skelton. I'm from FutureLearn. First of all, I just want to say what you're doing is absolutely amazing. It's superb. But what I'm interested in is you described this as MOOC 2.0. So if credit for MOOCs is the next thing, does that mean that's the direction that all MOOCs are going in? It'd be really interesting to see what all of you think of that.
Maybe I'll take that. There again, if you look at the MOOC movement, you're seeing changes happening among all the various folks. If you look at MOOCs, what does MOOC stand for? MOOC stands for massive, And the second O is open. And so those of them that started and are still offering open courses, among those, I would say yes, the focus is MOOC 2.0. What has happened is that many of the for-profit providers pivoted over the past 2 or 3 years at various times into more traditional ways of doing things, which is you pay a fee and then you get a subscription and then it's skills-based training, which folks like Linda and others have been doing for decades. And so really it's not, the M is gone and the O is gone. And so it's, I guess you could call it OX. But, but to the extent, so certainly at edX, we are nonprofit. We are absolutely focused on the mission of scale and open access. And so for us, for all our courses, all our videos, assessments, homeworks are available for students to take for free. If they want the credential or they want a specialized experience or hand grading or services that cost money, then they have to pay a fee.
So I'll hesitate to mention I won't hesitate to mention the Georgia Tech Online Masters in CS, which is for credit for a degree completely in MOOC format. Yep. So I think this is the bow wave that is coming. Do we have another? Yes.
No, this is excellent, and I think one of the challenges is going to be getting other universities to take this. And how do you prepare, or how do you identify the evidence base? Now, in mathematics courses, it's easy. If the students who are doing the normal classes and they're taking this version, they pass the same test, and you can have some confidence that they have had the same learning outcome. But have you thought about doing a cohort-based study by an independent third party that actually tracks students who are coming out of this in later years in college, whereas you are providing the evidence base that perhaps the learning outcomes of students going through a first-year experience like this is more effective longer term, so that you provide the evidence base for other state legislatures, state governments, to start focusing on why don't you do this and reduce the cost of higher education.
Absolutely. Let me say a word about that, because that's very much in our minds. In a sense, we look at the Global Freshman Academy as not only a school, but as a scientific instrument. Now, I went to Michigan State as an undergraduate, and Michigan State in the 1930s, or maybe I think the 1950s, they built a cyclotron. Now, by building this cyclotron, they then attracted researchers to come to do those experiments and produce data about the collisions of particles that then were used by thousands of researchers around the world to investigate the fundamental physics. What I would submit is that when we build an online course like this that's instrumented and at the scale that we're describing, the ability to gather data as a data set that tracks the experiences of students as they encounter different concepts, and then to longitudinally plot what happens to these students. Do they succeed in follow-on courses? Do they go on to success in other programs? Do they go on to employment? That data set becomes a tremendously valuable asset for all of us to begin to study. And so when I say that ASU is conceptualizing of this as an asset to the education community, that's what we mean. So we're so interested in working with any other university, any other community college, any high school, district, or teacher that wants to utilize these resources to benefit from this massive research project. You know, in his last lecture at Carnegie Mellon, Simon, right, the artificial intelligence researcher, said, look, progress in post-secondary education won't occur until it's a collaborative sport, until many people collaborate around understanding this, as opposed to individual by individual, lone eagle by lone eagle, solo practitioner by solo practitioner, making an individual course that the practitioner gets better and then dies. And the improvement dies with them. We have the opportunity now to study what it takes to learn mathematics and to get successively better at it, and to also then extend that into the sciences and to extend that even into other subjects, which today seem to us more difficult. But with consistent study, I'm confident that we can make real progress here.
I think certainly suggested something that we should all do. There are two kinds of experiments we can do. One is A/B testing, and second is longitudinal studies. We are doing A/B testing today, which is the online approach as good, better, or worse than, say, a purely campus-based approach or a blended approach? We are doing those studies, and we've actually published many of them already. For those of you interested, we've done studies with community colleges, a study at San Jose State, and an MIT professor did a study comparing his online course on edX versus his campus course. And he showed that the delta improvement in outcomes was actually better on his edX course than in his delta outcomes in the MIT campus course. So these studies are coming out in terms of A/B testing. The platform also supports A/B testing. On the longitudinal studies, that's a really good idea. And I know you mentioned this to me before as well, and I take it to heart. I think we should be doing these longitudinal studies, not just an A/B test at the moment, but a longitudinal study to find out the first year of Global Freshman Academy is one thing, but then how do those students do in year 2, 3, 4, 5, and then keep following them on like the Framingham Heart Study for the rest of their lives to see, did we mess them up forever? Or did the adaptive learning platform of McGraw-Hill rewire their brains in a way that they got completely screwed up for the next 20 years? Or did it do better for them? And so we should do these studies, and your question and suggestion is a good one, and we should.
We're running up against a hard deadline here, and I do want to take moderator's prerogative and ask our panelists to predict the future a bit. So if we can just get, and I'm going to start with Stephen, because
Sure.
he always has a chance to think about things and come up with a great answer. So what does the future look like from your point of view?
So we know there's one constant, and that learning is inherently social. And that constant does not change. I mean, you think about what inspired you to be the learned person that you are today, and it isn't about the content and it isn't about the pedagogy, it's about the people who brought you along the journey. And so my belief is that remains unchanged. And then the key, though, is how do we make that work at scale in a world where increasingly it's hard to have enough master teachers and students spend time together. Right? Benjamin Bloom taught us that if we had the apprenticeship model, everybody's better off, but we can't afford it as a world. And so I think it is the authentic application of technology and the use of the data that generates in the learning moment to drive greater social interaction. Generally, that's the future. How we get there? Well-studied experiments. And so we need to break down every barrier to safe experimentation to accelerate that future.
Anant, future.
Sure. So I think the future of education is unbundled, simply put. What Global Freshman Academy did by being able to provide credit for students that post facto, after they'd succeeded, for MOOCs, really tied credit both to MOOC courses and to what they could learn on campus. What that did was enabled a common currency to be used both online and on campus. And so it enables a new kind of unbundling. So just like the phone system got unbundled, you buy your services from AT&T, you buy a phone from Samsung, and you buy your music from somebody else. Education will become unbundled in the future. And I think I dream about a future where you go to a university and freshman year, you've already done your freshman year through Global Freshman Academy. You come to campus and you're doing your math course, and oh, by the way, the campus is using the online platform in a blended model. And oh, by the way, the content is unbundled. For the math course, they're using content from the McGraw-Hill's adaptive learning system, and the professors are helping the students, but the content comes from McGraw-Hill. The credential comes from the university. So I see this transitioning of credit into a new kind of commodity that transitions across online and in person to really result in a new world of unbundling of credentials, content, and also the clock, which is time.
Arizona State.
All right, so there's two things I think. First, there will always be teachers. Always. There will never be machines that replace teachers, period. And anybody who tells you different is selling you something. And then I think the person who put the greatest vision forward for what technology can do for education is Neil Stephenson, who in The Diamond Age describes the young lady's illustrated primer. And I like to think that Alex, in math, is the beginning of that illustrated primer. An integration of human intelligence and artificial intelligence that allows us to pay more attention to individual people, yet scale our expertise. And so the playbook is there in the science fiction community. We just got to follow the playbook.
So with that, science fiction doesn't get any more futuristic than real life, I guess. I'd like to thank our panel for a great session.